Hey everyone, welcome back to Bex Rex. I am going to talk to you about some more books, and today's theme is books that made me feel big feelings. So this could be anything from it made me cry to it hit home with stuff I've been through or just things to do with my personality. It could be part of a series, so like a really big cliffhanger moment, one that just like made me obsessed with it after I was done. And then I'm also going to share some hopefuls at the end for books that I'm really hoping give me big feelings as I read them. So grab a cup of tea, pop your headphones on, get some chores done, whatever you do, enjoy, and let's get started. So first book on the list, we have The Dictionary of Lost Words. This book is so beautiful. I had put it off when I first got it, I think because I knew it would be big, but I also knew that it might be a little bit of a slower read compared to what I was used to. And so I put it off a little bit, but then my friends were reading it and loving it. And so I read it and I loved it. And pretty much like the whole last third or quarter of the book, I was just sobbing. I remember I was reading it on a car ride and I was in the passenger seat and I literally had to like finish it and read it at home because I was just like trying not to cry with my brother-in-law in the driver's seat. Anyway, got home and I finished it and I just, absolutely cried for the whole end of it. It is just so beautiful, and it is set in Australia. No, it's not. It's by an Australian author, but it is set in England. At Oxford English Dictionary. So her dad works for the dictionary and it's like them forming the first dictionary to exist. And so they research and they discover new words and they have to have a certain amount of credible sources for it to be included in the dictionary. And it's Esme, right? Yeah, Esme grows up going to this place, going to her dad's work with him, and random words will fall on the floor and she starts collecting them. And then as she gets older, she discovers words that are purposely left out because either they just don't have enough accreditation or they're left out by choice. And so she's like, who makes these decisions? What decides which words get included in the dictionary and what? Set in a time where like women were fighting for rights, and so it's all kind of like wrapped up into this really beautiful story, and it is just such a beautiful book. I definitely recommend. It is a little bit of like a more dense read, so if you're used to light romances, it's not that, but it is very, very beautiful. Now the next one is, this is a book where I felt very represented in the main character, and that is Happy Place. I have read this a couple times now, and both times reading it I was just like, oh my gosh, that is me, and not in the greatest way. So no, in a good way. I loved her. I love the main character. I love this story. I love the main couple in it. It is just a summer romance. It's a great book, but the parts where she kind of has to like face up to what her personality is like and how it can affect other people even without her meaning to, I was just like, oh my gosh, if that isn't me, I don't know what it is. And it's actually something I'm like trying to work on at the moment, so it's kind of ringing true. Yeah, the whole big climax moment where she's like coming to terms with the pain that she's caused someone else because of like not speaking up. I was like, oh my gosh, okay. So this one really hit home for me, made me feel big things. I love this book. I love Emily Henry's books, but this one is my favorite because it just feels like the most like me, and the character development that Harriet has in it, I was just like, love. Just love this book. Now this one, if you've heard the premise of it, you may not expect this to have made me feel really big feelings, but it did, and that is Love and Other Words by Christina Lauren. And this is about a teenage girl, like when she's a teenager, her mom has passed away like semi-recently, and her dad buys this cottage for them that is kind of just like this escape for them whenever they need it, and it is a little bit out of town, a couple of hours away from where she lives. And the family that live next door have a bunch of sons, and what's her name? Macy makes friends with the boy next door, and whenever they visit this house they just develop their friendship and they start hanging out, and it's very like coming of age in that as they grow up and they discover what it is to have feelings for someone and stuff. That is something that they explore, but it also has a time jump of it to when they are adults, and so it time jumps between the two. And where it starts off when they're adults, she is in a relationship, she's a doctor, I think. I don't know, her job's not important. They run into each other and it's just like, oh my gosh, I haven't seen you since this big thing happened. And you're like, what's the big thing that happened? you don't find out till really later in the end. And I think sometimes when that is the premise of a book, where like there's this big secret that you're like waiting to have revealed later on in the book, sometimes it gets revealed and you're just like, oh, I don't know if that was really worth like not talking for 10 plus years. You probably could have just had a conversation about that and saved yourselves a lot of trouble. Like quite often that happens, but in this one, when it's revealed what happened and like the series of events surrounding it, you're just like, oh my gosh, like of course they didn't talk. And it's just like, oh, it hits big emotions, I will say though, I do not recommend this. Oh, no, I would say for Happy Place and Love and Other Words, I'm not recommending them to teenagers. I would say look up if you can handle content in them. Some stuff you can skip over. Enough said? Enough said. But this book, just very beautiful, and it just rips your heart out, pretty much. Yeah, but in a great way, because it's really beautiful. Anyway, Love and Other Words. And now this one, oh, love of my life, Nicholas Sparks, The Wish. This one I read, I don't know, I read it years ago now, and it's just a beautiful book. It's classic Nicholas Sparks vibe. It's got a lot of time jumping, which is also pretty typical of him. And it follows, wasn't it? Yeah, Maggie. So it starts off in the present time and she's just a grown woman and she's an artist and she has an art gallery and things, and she's sick, but she's just kind of living her life and she doesn't have family or anything. She just kind of like goes through life by herself. And then one day this young man walks into the store and they just like spark this friendship, and she just begins to kind of tell him about her life. And so as she tells him about her life, it does flashbacks to when she was a teenager, and when she was 16 or 17 she was pregnant and her parents couldn't cope with that, so they send her to live with, I think it's her auntie or a close family friend, but I think it's her auntie. So she goes for the summer to live with her, and while she's there she meets this boy and they form a really beautiful friendship. Oh, these books sound very similar. They form a beautiful friendship over the summer and all this stuff. So like it's jumping between the timelines, and yeah, just as you discover her life and their friendship, it's just like really beautiful summer romance, young love vibes. And of course, Nicholas Sparks, it wouldn't be one of his novels if it didn't rip your heart out. And so this one very much made me cry. I remember I read it and I was crying. I cried as I was reading it, and then it was like the next day was my birthday and I went out for breakfast with my friend Michelle, and I was like telling her the plot and I told her what happens in the end and how it ended. And as I was telling her, I was like tearing up, and she was like, oh my gosh, that's emotional, that's full on. I was like, yeah. Anyway, I recommend it. I haven't read it since, but I've been wanting to reread it. Just a beautiful, beautiful book. Oh, I should also mention another book that made me feel very big things that I just don't have the physical copy of is The Women. I've talked about this book before, I know, and I did a reading vlog that happened to have it in it last year, and it was emotional. That book was so beautiful. It's set in the Vietnam War. Main character is a nurse over in the war, and she just like sees so much while she's there. She experiences so much. She forms these beautiful relationships with these two women. There's also a bit of romance while she's over there, and then when she gets back home, she is just like dealing majorly with PTSD. But also a thing about the Vietnam War is that they didn't believe that women were there. Like they always talked about the men that went and fought in Nam, but like never believed that women were there. And so she's just like not able to get the help that she needs, like so desperately, which is so frustrating. As you're reading it, you're just like, oh my gosh, someone like hear this woman out, please. But they just don't. And so she just goes through so much, and it's like her family dynamics are not great, and so she's navigating that while also just being like so depressed and anxious, and oh, it was a lot. And it was like by the end of it you're just like, I just want this book to be done because I just can't deal with these emotions. And then it ends really beautifully but emotionally, and oh, great book. Now the next few are all part of different series, and they sit in different orders in those series, and that is intentionally. The first one, this one is the third book in a series, and that is the one, it is part of the Selection trilogy. I love these books so much. They came out when I would have been in high school and I have read them probably like 3 or 4 times, and lately I've been feeling the itch to read them again. The last time I read them was 2 years ago, and I read them pretty much one a day or one every 2 days. Like, they're very easy reads and they're a young audience, but they're still beautiful. And this one is just filled with so much tension, and I don't mean that in like romantic or sexual tension or anything, just literally like tension, because the premise of this book, the selection, is the main girl, her name is America, and she lives in a society, it's like dystopian, there's like caste systems, and she is a number 5, which is not the lowest. I think 7 is the lowest, but it's definitely not well off. It's below middle class, and she is an artist. The 5s are like the musicians and the artists and the creatives and stuff, and she has a secret relationship with a guy who is a 6. So he's even lower than her. So for her and him to have a relationship is like even worse for her, and doesn't typically happen to like marry below your caste, especially a 6, because they're not great. Sorry, they're just not well off. And then the selection is, so the ones are the royals, and the prince has come of age to find a wife, and so they run this like nationwide contest, pretty much kind of like The Bachelor, where women from all over the country get selected in the selection, and they go to the palace to win the heart of the prince and become the next queen, pretty much. And she obviously, because she has this other love, she's like not that keen on it, but she enters just to kind of like please her mum, and she's like, whatever. She gets selected. Oh, big shock. It's not a spoiler, it's in the blurb. And so she goes, and at first she's like really reluctant, because she's just like, I don't want to be here, I want to be with my love back home. And then her and the prince like form a bit of a friendship in the first one, and she's like super torn between, no, she's not torn in the first book, but anyway, this book, it's like the climax of that whole competition. It's the climax of, there's like rebels that have been trying to like take down the monarchy. There's the whole caste system that is just like not fair, and so she's like very much a fighter and like is trying to fight for her people and all this stuff, and it's just like you just don't know how it's gonna end, and it's literally like a competition, love triangles, like it's just complicated in this book. You're just like, oh, made me feel big feelings. You should read this trilogy, it's great. It's YA, which means it's just perfect, honestly. Ugh. And so the next book is also part of a series, but this one is the first in this series, and that is Fourth Wing. You've probably heard about it, you've probably heard lots of things, and I'm here to tell you that I too was hesitant that it had dragons in it. I was like, what do you mean? Dragons? Dragons? Really? But from the moment the dragons like enter, I was like, oh, I'm hooked. Oh, I'm hooked. This is so good. I will say it does have a lot of sexual content in it, but actually this one less than the next one. I actually haven't read the third one yet. It does have some sexual content in it, so I will say I highly do not recommend this to a young audience, but also with it, I will say it's very easy to skip because nothing crucial happens. And so you literally just go, oh, okay, skip a few pages. Okay, we're back to the action, right? Okay, everyone? Anyway, this book was like the first time I'd read fantasy I'd ever read, but it also just has like similar vibes to Divergent, where she gets admitted to this academy, she's an underdog, she's not very fit, she's not very strong, have to compete in these challenges and like different trials and things along the way, which is just such a fun time and so exciting. And then you add dragons into the mix, and yes, that may sound crazy, but it was a fun time. I loved it. And this book, when I like put the book down and went out to the lounge room and Abby was there, and I was just like, oh my gosh, I don't know what to do with myself. I don't know what to do with myself. I just was like enthralled. Like it was the first one I'd read like this in so long, and it just felt so fun to be back, because like Hunger Games, Divergent, like I grew up reading those, and then I just hadn't read anything in the same kind of realm as them in years. And so this, ow, oh, that really hurt. Oh my gosh, I have an instant bump. I don't know if you can see that, but ow, that really hurt. Ow. Speaking of big emotions, jeez. What was I saying? Yes, it was the first time I'd read something like that in a long time, and it was just like, oh, I'm back. It just gave that feeling of I'm back and this is fun. I loved this book. And now this one, such an incredible trilogy. I love this. It's also YA, very clean, very safe, thank goodness, and just such a fun trilogy. And this is the second in the trilogy, and it is The Gilded Cage as part of the Prison Healer trilogy. So the first one, it starts off this girl, Kiva Meriden. She is in this prison called Zalendov, which is basically a prison that people get sent to die. They get sent there to work and to fulfill requirements and stuff, but pretty much like no one makes it out because the conditions are so grueling and tough and they're not looked after well, and so most people just go there to die. And Kiva is there because when she was a child her dad got arrested and she didn't want to leave her dad, and so she ended up in this prison. So she didn't actually do anything wrong and she was a child when she went there, and she is now 16, 17, 18, 16 to 18, can't remember her age, I think 16. Anyway, she is the healer, so she basically the doctor of the prison. She like knows all these remedies she learned from her dad, and so she takes care of the prisoners, and so she gets cared for a little bit more than others, but like still it's just not great. Where it starts, so there are rebels, and the rebel queen has been captured and brought to Zalendov, and because she's like, I hope you can't hear that, there's so much work going on. I tried to shut off the noise, but anyway, because she's like such a bad criminal, for lack of a better term, she gets sentenced to this thing called the trial by ordeals, and it's basically like they have to do a trial that is based in each element, so fire, earth, air, blah blah, and if she can complete those then she gets to go free. And Kiva is just like, this woman is literally on death's door, there's no way she can compete in them, and so she volunteers in her place, which you're like, why the heck would she do that? But she's just got a great heart, and she's like, that's not fair, and I'm an able-bodied person, so I'm gonna volunteer for her. And so she has to compete in these trials. In the first book you're just like, okay, where's this going? I don't know. Ends with a massive cliffhanger, leads into this book, which is beautiful. I love this book so much, and this one you just get a lot more of the character development, classic of the second in a trilogy. You get a lot of character development, but there's also just this tension underlying the whole thing of just like, oh my gosh, what is gonna happen with that? And what is gonna happen with this? And then there are some characters that like force those tensions to like fast track, and you're just like, oh my gosh, no, stop it, because what's gonna happen when this happens? And then the end of this book, this was another one that I literally came out to Abby and I proceeded to tell her the whole plot of the first book and this book so that she could understand my big emotions, and she was just like, okay, cool, that's huge. And I was like, it is huge. And so made me feel a lot of things. And then the third book also makes you feel a lot of things as well. Oh, I just want to read it again. I've also read this trilogy twice. I've only read it twice, but I will read it again, absolutely. And so those are my books of big feelings. And now here to share I want to share my hopefuls of ones that I hope give me big feelings when I read them. So first one by the same author as one previously mentioned, and it also happens to be in my April TBR. It is already the 18th of April, so we will see if I get to it, but that is The Bookbinder of Jericho, which people that have read Dictionary of Lost Words and then read this like didn't seem to love it as much, but I do believe it still has big emotions, I think. And I'm kind of hoping it does, because that just feels like it should. It feels right to have big emotions, being that it is set in a similar world to, well, the same world as Dictionary of Lost Words. So hopeful that this makes me feel big things. My next hopeful, as mentioned before, Kristen Hanna, The Great Alone. I actually have started this book, as you can maybe see. I started this book, but I kind of paused it to read book club and then also my April TBR. So I'll probably pick it up soon, I hope. Very cute, it has little pictures. Anyway, I hope to pick it up. It's about a family. Starts off, the girl is quite young and her dad had fought in Vietnam or the war. I think, Vietnam. Vietnam War, and he is suffering from PTSD pretty much. And he's a bit abusive, which is not great. Bit of an alcoholic, also not great. And then he just gets this opportunity to move his family to extremely rural, gosh guys, rural is a hard word to say. Anyway, the middle of nowhere, Alaska. And where I'm up to, they've like literally just gotten to the house, and so I'm very much at the start. And basically like they're just like not prepared for the extreme winters of Alaska, the extreme conditions that they'll face. There's bears, freezing cold weather, all the stuff, and they're just this like tiny family with a lot of stuff going on. And everyone that has read this, like literally today, an influencer that I follow, or it was yesterday, an influencer that I follow posted about it and was like, I've read this book and I can't stop thinking about it. And my friend Sarah, who got me this book, was like, oh my gosh, it's so incredible. So I'm very excited to read it, and I'm very prepared to feel big feelings as I read it. And then the last one is a book that is very new to me. I haven't heard a lot of people talk about it. In fact, I've only heard one person talk about it, and that is To Cage a Wild Bird. The vibe that I'm getting from the back of it is that it feels like it's going to be a mix of The Hunger Games and the Prison Healer trilogy. So that already makes me very excited for it. But basically the main character, her younger brother, gets sent to this prison where at this prison the rich like bet to hunt the prisoners. Not great. But the main character's younger brother gets sent there, and she's like, oh heck no. And so she volunteers, goes to the prison, like chases after him to try and like save him. Let me just read the back to you, okay? It says, a deadly prison, a forbidden romance, a fight for survival. In the city of Davidium, the law is simple. Commit a crime and your punishment is a life sentence in N-Block, a prison where the wealthy hunt inmates for sport. Raventhorn is Davidium's most notorious bounty hunter, living on the edge of society. But when her younger brother Jeb is sentenced to N-Block, Raven will do anything to save him, even if it means getting herself arrested. Trapped in a prison where danger lurks around every corner, Raven must use all her cunning and strength to protect Jed and herself if she is to complete her perilous mission. But there's one obstacle she never expected. The prison guard who stirs something deep inside her. The man she should hate. The man whose true motives seem impossible to pin down. In a world where trust is a weapon and love is a liability, Raven can't afford for her heart to get involved. Ooh! So, yeah, very much like Hunger Games dystopian vibe, killing for sport, and then also Prison Healer, getting sentenced to a prison where you get sent to die. So I'm very excited for this. I believe it's standalone, which is very fun, and I just really hope that it leaves me like, love it, so good. And so that is the last of my hopefuls. And so there we have it, guys. Those are my books that made me feel very big feelings. Some of those are just like in my all-time favorite books now. Some of them not so much, they could be replaced by other things, but all of them made me feel a lot as I read them. And so if you want a book that makes you feel big feelings, feel free to pick up any of these and let me know what you think. If you have other books that left you reeling in either like you were just dead from the romance, or you were high on life from the action of it, or you just sobbed your eyes out, let me know. I want to read them. There's plenty more where this came from really, but these are just favorites and ones that I have on my bookshelf. And yeah, if you read them and you enjoy them, let me know. And I hope you enjoyed my recs for today, and I will see you in the next one. God bless you. Bye.